we will demonstrate the lights out application that YouTube had running for Earth Day, as well as a theater mode example that darkens everything on the page except the video that is playing. Now if we're going to do this just like YouTube did their lights out application using an actual light switch interface that you can toggle up and down, we're going to need a light switch. We're going to need to create that ourselves in a graphics editing tool because we can't steal YouTube's because that's a copyright violation. We can model ours off of YouTube's and make it look similar, but it can't be the exact same graphics because that is a copyright violation and you will go to jail. YouTube will send a black sedan to your house because they can afford black sedans being sent to your house to kill you. You don't steal their buttons. Now if you don't want to understand how these kind of graphics can be custom made by you, then you can just skip to the next video where we'll begin programming the application. Now just to let you guys know before I show you how to create this, mine is really large, and the reason why I created my vector graphics very large, I'm going to go to modify and flatten, I'm going to shrink it down a little bit, is because the more you shrink it down, it looks better if you create it big and then shrink it down. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll control X and I'll bring it over here and compare it to YouTube's. Let me put it in place here and shrink it down to be the same size as that one, and I'll see if it looks okay and professional enough. So go back to 100% and mine looks pretty much almost just like theirs. There's differences to where you can see my edge is darker, and I did that on purpose, and I have other differences in mine that I put there on purpose to differentiate mine from theirs. That way they know I didn't steal their exact graphics, because even if I took their graphics and maybe changed the color or the hue a little bit, it still wouldn't come out looking exactly like mine. You can see mine has deeper crevices here, darker crevices, and the actual switch itself, it's a little more pronounced. Okay, so if you go back to 100%, and even if you flip that bad boy, you can see it looks decent in its up position and the down position. And it has like a 3D look to it, but you can see that it doesn't leave the bounds of this rectangle. You see how it has a 3D appearance, but it doesn't leave the bounds. The top of the switch is still within the bounds of the rectangle, you see. So it's really slick the way they designed their light switch, and I modeled mine from theirs. And I'm going to show you how to create that right now. And I'm using Adobe Fireworks, but you can be in Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator or GIMP or any graphics editing tool that you're comfortable with that you have mastered. That way you can follow the same steps, but just using a different software. But if you're using Fireworks, you can follow my exact steps and you won't have any problems. Now the first thing I did was I drew this outer rectangle. You can see it's a solid dark gray rectangle, so let's create that now. And I'll just put everything right next to that one. Okay, let me see how wide this one is. It's 121. So let's make this one 121 as well. Alright, so we have 121, 294 if you want to follow my exact dimensions. Then I put a black rectangle on top of that. You can see the black rectangle that I have selected here is 89 width, 262 height. So let's draw that in right now. What was it? 89 width, 262. You see my little tooltips there next to my cursor? You can enable that in Fireworks if it's not enabled for you already by going up to View Tooltips. That way you can see the dimensions of things as you're drawing them out. So right about there looks good. Just so that it's off of the edge a little more on this side than it is on the other. You want the black rectangle on the inside closer to your bottom left edge than it is to your top right edge. Now you're going to highlight that rectangle, press Ctrl C, Ctrl V to put another copy right on top of itself. You see? But don't move it. Leave it right where it is. You're going to highlight the one on top and then the large rectangle on the outside together by holding Shift. You can select one, hold Shift, and select the other, and you'll select both of them. And then you go to Modify, Combine Paths, and Punch. Now what you've done, and you don't want to move it like I'm moving it now, but I just want to show you what you've done. You punched a hole in that shape using the other shape. And if you move it, press Ctrl Z, it'll go right back. Now this, I stuck a bevel on. You can see I have an inner bevel set. and it's set to 51%, 5, 60, and 6. So let's go ahead and give it those settings right now. Bevel, inner bevel, put that around 50. That was on something like 5, I think. Put the angle to this direction, or whatever direction you want really. And this was something like 5 or 6, right? Yeah, that's close enough. Now all we have to do is draw in 4 shapes, and we'll start with a rectangle. So you can go to your shapes tool, hold down, get a rectangle, and we're going to start in this corner here, in the bottom left corner, and we'll draw up and in till we get to about maybe right there. And it doesn't have to be precise. And remember, at any point you can adjust the size of your shapes or the exact points. If I wanted to move this point, say over here, I could do that at any time. And then if I don't like what I did, press Ctrl Z. Now let's highlight this rectangle and we'll manipulate its fill. We'll give it a gradient of linear. And what I'll do is I'll just take it like that and go something like that till it matches the look of the other one sitting there next to it. Something like that. Maybe a little lighter. Now I'm going to draw the top shape, which is a rectangle. Or you can use your pen tool as well. I'll show you. You can just grab the pen tool, and I'm going to start right about here to where it'll be about at this point on this one, but over here. Click down, let go, and you can hold your shift key if you want straight angled lines. If you let go of your shift key, it'll be a free floating line. But I'm just going to hold it down so it's nice and straight. I'll hold shift down, and I'll click down here, let go, keep holding shift. I'll go over to about maybe right there. It doesn't have to be exact. Remember, you can move your shape points around at any time. Then you go back up and you go right there. And you see how mine's jagged? If you zoom in, you'll see I'm jagged there, so I can just move that point. Grab my sub selection tool, grab that point, move it up. And then everything's perfectly straight on the shape. Now it looks like this one has to be a little wider to match the width of that other one. So let's make it a little wider. Just highlighted those 2 points by holding shift. Okay, now I'm going to put a third shape in between these two to connect them, which is this shape here. I'm going to grab my pen tool, and you can even zoom in if you like. You can select one of your shapes, zoom in by holding Control and mouse wheeling in and out. You can zoom in, and then you grab your pen tool, and you just go to this point right here. You can start at any point that you want. Then you go down to right here, and then you go across to here. You can hold down shift to make sure it's a straight line. Click down, let go, then you go up to here. Click down, let go, and go across. Or in my case, my line is jagged, so I can move that point, that selection, just that point up to make sure that line is straight. Now this, you can see, is not all the way in the bottom. So I can grab the sub selection tool, grab that point and that point by holding shift while I grab them together and move them both down simultaneously. Now this thing, I just want to be a solid color, so I can actually go to solid and then just replicate that color right there. Now this gradient has to be a little bit different, this linear. On the top where it's white, I want it to be dark like this one, and then light on the bottom edge like this one. Now I'm going to take a rectangle and make that crease, this crease that you see going across right there. I'm just going to put a rectangle right here, maybe make it 2 or 3 pixels high, and make sure that's solid and not so bright, or I mean not so dark. Make sure it's only maybe 3 pixels in height. Okay, now the last shape you have to draw to give this a good effect is this shape that you see right here. If I zoom in, you can see it a little bit better. See, it just gives everything kind of like an edge. So you can zoom in on your graphics a little bit if it helps you out. You grab your pen tool, and we can start up here at the top. And what I'm going to do is go right about here, and I'm going to click down, let go. I'm going to hold my shift key so I make a perfectly straight line as I go down. And I'm going to meet this point right there, the edge of that line. Click down, let go. Then I'm going to come down to maybe about right there. Click down, let go. And then I'm going to come into the shape a little bit to about right there. Click down, let go. Then I'm going to go all the way up. to about right here, and then all the way across to there. And then I'll have a shape that I'm going to give a solid fill, and I think that's just about the right color. So you see where it is there? And look at the bottom. You want to make sure your points match up. Mine needs to move over a little bit. This one needs to go over one to the left and down. This one needs to go down one. There. Now if you look at everything, you got that shape is on top of the others, and you just want to make sure this shape, this rectangle, and this rectangle. So you have 4 rectangles. They need to be on top of that other one. So with those 4 selected, you can press Control, Shift, and your up arrow key all together at the same time. Control, Shift, up arrow key. It's like bring to front. Or you can use these up here. See, send backward, bring forward. It's the same functionality as those. Now if you zoom in on that, you can see you have like a shadow effect, or really an edge, a 3D edge effect made for that switch. Alright, so now if you take your graphics that you've just assembled, you press Control C, Control V, you make a copy, and then you go to Modify, flatten the copy that you just made, and then you can scale it. Now once you scale it, you can see how it'll look here, and I have a black rectangle there just to see how it'll look on a black background. Now I can take that, press Control X, and reference it to these others and make sure it looks okay at that size. So I'll put it right here, zoom in a little bit, resize it, scale it, and let's see if we've done good work. That's beautiful. Looks good enough. And then when it's in its up position, it's going to look like that. So whether you draw it initially in its down position or its up position, you can just flip it to get its counterpart. Okay, now here's what you do. You want to make sure that this main file that you're working in with your editable graphics, you save that. That way you always have a backup. You can change these graphics later if you want, change the color, the style. But you want to take a copy. Actually, you want to get it at the size you want it to be. So really that's the size I want mine to be, because I'm emulating YouTube's. So I'm just going to take that one that I have in place right there, this one that we made just now. I'm going to flip it back to its down position. Actually, I'll leave it in its up position. Press Control X, go to File, New, OK, Control V, and make sure it's fit into the canvas well. And then I'm going to go to File, Export Wizard, Continue, Continue, Exit. Then I'm going to make this PNG32 just so it looks really nice. Or you can make it JPEG and then up the quality a little bit, make it look sharp. I'll make it JPEG 90 quality, export, and in my folder website here I'm going to put it in my images folder. So let's make an images folder, because I don't have one yet. If you have one, you can just put it in there, and I'm going to name it Light Switch Up. Save. Now I'm just going to grab it, highlight it, and go to flip vertical up top there. Now I have its down counterpart. So I can go to File, and I'm going to do the same process. Export, Continue, Continue, Exit. I'm going to go to make sure it's a JPEG. Put it on 90 just like the other one was, and export it. And this one I'm going to call Light Switch Down. Or you can choose to call yours Light Switch On or Light Switch Off. I just prefer to name mine up and down instead of on and off. You can do whatever you want. Okay, I really don't need that file anymore, so I'm going to close that file in Fireworks. And now we're ready to begin the next 2 lessons, where we're going to show how YouTube pulled off their Earth Day application. And there's some things I'm going to have to talk to you guys about, because it might not be what you think. It's their Earth Day application isn't really an overlay. It's really a CSS manipulation application. And I'm also going to show a theater mode video. So we'll do 2 videos. We'll show you the Earth Day application, the way YouTube did it, to darken up the web page. And we'll also show you a theater mode overlay that shows you how to do something like have a video on the page, and maybe your web page is white. You click the little switch and it'll make the web page have a dark overlay similar to the one we did in the last video. But instead of the overlay coming in and darkening everything on the page, the video will not get darkened, but everything else in the page will. And the video will not be affected, and it will then be the focus of attention on the page. It's just like theater mode for videos and multimedia. Alright, so I'll see you guys in the next two videos, and I hope this one helped you guys see how maybe the YouTube designers are working and how they're creating some of their vector graphics. Okay, so we'll see you guys in the next two videos where we'll be creating some cool applications using these graphics that we just created.